I didn't know a traffic stop could feel like the floor dropping out from under your life, until the moment red and blue lights lit up my rearview mirror on a quiet Tuesday afternoon, and in 3 sentences flat, I realized this wasn't about a turn signal or speed or paperwork. It was about whether the man walking up to my window had already decided who I was. Yeah, that happened, and by the time it was over, one of us would lose everything while the other would walk away carrying a truth he couldn't unlearn. I'd spent years in law enforcement, federal sidelong hours, ugly cases, doors kicked in at dawn, guns drawn in dark hallways. The kind of work that teaches you to listen to your instincts because they're usually right, and that afternoon my instincts were whispering before the lights even came on. I was driving home through Brookhaven Estates, a neat little neighborhood where the lawns look trimmed even in winter, and everyone waves at each other like it's a postcard. Speed limit 35. I was doing 34 seatbelt on signals clean, nothing flashy, nothing loud, just me and my thoughts winding down after a long assignment. And then I noticed the cruiser behind me not flying up, not backing off, just sitting there close enough to feel intentional, and I told myself not to overthink it. Cops follow cars all the time, right? But he stayed with me, block after block, mirrored every turn, and that tight feeling in my chest settled in like an old memory. When the lights finally flipped on, I sighed, pulled over the way we teach everyone else to pull over, smooth stop, engine off, hands on the wheel window, down calm compliant because that's how this is supposed to go, and the officer stepped out fast, too fast, hand hovering near his holster posture, sharp eyes locked on me like I'd already done something wrong. He didn't ask for my license, didn't tell me why he stopped me. Leaned in and asked, "What are you doing in this neighborhood?" And you know what I mean. When I say that question landed heavy, because it wasn't curiosity, it was an accusation wrapped in a sentence. And right then I knew this was different. I answered calmly, told him I was heading home, asked the reason for the stop, and instead of explaining, he ordered me out of the car, voice clipped, impatient, and I felt that shift the moment when a routine stop tips into something else. I told him I was a federal agent, said my credentials were in my jacket inside the car, asked for permission to retrieve them slow and clear, the way we're trained. And he shut it down immediately, told me to put my hands up, said everyone has a badge these days. And that one line stuck with me because it told me he didn't care about the truth. He'd already written the story in his head. I stepped out slowly, hands visible, heart steady but loud, and he positioned himself behind me, voice rising for no reason, energy sharp, and across the street I noticed a curtain move, someone watching, sensing what I was sensing. He asked about weapons. I answered honestly, federal issued, secured, which should have been the end of the uncertainty, should have triggered verification. A radio call, 5 minutes of professionalism. But instead, it poured gasoline on the situation. He ordered me to the trunk, hands on the metal, and I complied, palms resting on warm paint. Neighborhood quiet in that way it gets when something feels off, and I kept explaining who I was, where my ID was, every word calm, respectful, trying to slow him down, but he wasn't listening. He keyed his radio and told dispatch he had a suspicious individual impersonating law enforcement and refusing to cooperate, and I heard every word a lie sent out like it was nothing. And that's when I noticed the woman across the street holding up her phone, not yelling, not interfering, just recording. And I remember thinking, thank God someone's watching. Backup arrived a few minutes later. 2 officers stepping into a scene already poisoned by bad information. And the officer who stopped me pulled them aside, talking fast, painting me as a problem. But when they looked at me, hands still on the trunk. Posture, calm voice, steady. Something didn't add up. One of them asked the obvious question. Had he let me show ID, and he brushed it off. Said I was dodging, so I looked straight at her and gave my full name, badge number, agency, and exactly where my credentials were, the kind of precision you don't fake, and I could see it click for them. That look between officers when they realize the story they're hearing doesn't match what's in front of them. She suggested quietly but firm that I be allowed to retrieve my identification, and he refused. Again, insisted he was in charge, said we were past that point, and that's when he made the decision that blew everything up. He announced he was searching my vehicle, and I told him clearly I did not consent, that he had no probable cause, and he ignored me. Walked straight to the passenger side, opened the door, reached into the jacket I'd mentioned multiple times, and pulled out my credentials. I watched his face change when he saw them. Not relief, not apology, just a flicker of panic before the walls went back up, and he studied them like they might be fake, asked why I hadn't shown them sooner. And for a split second, I almost laughed at the absurdity of it, because the body camera, the phones, the witnesses were all catching the truth in real time. One of the backup officers took the credentials and radioed dispatch herself, and 30 seconds later, confirmation came back clean. active federal agent, good standing, and by then half the block was watching phones everywhere, silence thick with judgment. He handed my credentials back without apologizing, told me I was free to go, like this was just another stop that had run its course and I didn't move, asked for his name and badge number, and he hesitated just long enough to tell me he knew this wasn't over, then gave it to me. I wrote everything down, time, location, name, sequence, took photos, documented it like a case because that's what it was. And when I finally drove away, I could already feel the weight of what had happened settling in. The videos went online fast by midnight. They were everywhere by morning. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Supervisors, attorneys, media, and the department put out a bland statement about an internal review that nobody believed, and this time it didn't fade because the evidence was too clear. Investigators pulled body cam footage, civilian videos, dispatch recordings, and then they pulled his history complaint after complaint, mostly traffic stops, mostly men who looked like me, same language, same behavior, different neighborhoods. A pattern hiding in plain sight that had been ignored with warnings and retraining instead of discipline. 3 weeks later, he was fired. 6 months after that, federal charges were filed: civil rights violations, illegal search, false statements. And when the trial finally came, the jury didn't take long. Guilty on all counts. 18 months in federal prison, permanent ban from law enforcement pension, gone career erased. People asked me if I felt satisfied, and the truth is satisfaction. Wasn't it? What I felt was clarity, because this was never just about one officer having a bad day. It was about a system that let him keep going until the wrong person got stopped, the wrong person to intimidate the wrong person to silence. I went back to work, same job, same risks, but I drive differently now. I notice things I didn't before. I understand something I wish I didn't have to. That the badge doesn't protect you from bias, cameras do, witnesses do, accountability does. And if this could happen to someone trained, armed, and legally protected, imagine how often it happens when there's no camera, no crowd, no platform. So here's what I want to ask you when you hear this story. Who do you think justice really works for, and how much of it depends on staying quiet? Yeah, think about that and tell me what you think in the comments. Agree, disagree. Share something you've seen or lived through. Because these conversations matter. And silence is the one thing that guarantees nothing ever changes.